It's 3, Alcima. The neighborhood is silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the world has been muted. And then, out of nowhere, it cuts through the dark. A scream, not a chirp, not a song, but a sharp, piercing call that doesn't belong to the night. You sit up in bed, you listen, it happens again. And somewhere deep in your chest, something ancient stirs. The same instinct your great-grandparents had when they would whisper that a bird calling at night was a warning, an omen, a sign that something was coming. For centuries, almost every culture on Earth has believed the same thing. A bird that screams in the darkness is not just a bird, it is a message. And here is what makes this so unsettling. Modern science, after decades of dismissing these beliefs as superstition, has now begun to find something underneath them, something real, something that suggests our ancestors were not entirely wrong. Welcome to Bird Whisper. Subscribe before you keep listening, because what you're about to learn will change the way you hear the night forever. Today, we are going into why birds scream at night, what they are actually saying when they do, and the hidden warning that researchers are only now beginning to decode. Stay until the end, because the final part of this video involves a discovery so recent that most birdwatchers have never even heard of it, and it suggests that the birds calling outside your window in the middle of the night may be reacting to something you cannot see, cannot hear, and cannot detect with any of your human senses. Let's begin with the numbers, because most people do not realize how common nighttime bird calls actually are. According to a comprehensive review published in the Condor, the Journal of the American Ornithological Society, at least 30% of all North American bird species vocalize at night, and that figure includes birds from 18 of the 22 major bird orders. Even more strikingly, more than 70% of those nighttime callers are species that we think of as daytime birds. Robins, cardinals, mockingbirds, sparrows, thrushes, warblers. These are not nocturnal creatures. They are birds that should be asleep. And yet they are not. They are awake. They are alert. And they are calling out into the darkness for reasons that are far more specific than most people have ever been told. The first thing you need to understand is that a bird does not waste energy without reason. Every single vocalization a bird makes costs calories, costs oxygen, and most dangerously, costs concealment. A calling bird is a bird that is announcing its location to every predator within hearing range. In a forest at night, that range can extend hundreds of meters. So when a bird breaks the silence of the night to scream, it is taking an enormous risk. And in biology, when an animal takes a risk that large, there is always a reason that outweighs the cost. Always. So what could possibly be worth that risk? The most common answer, and the one that science has documented most thoroughly, is migration. Roughly 80% of bird species in North America migrate at night. That is not a small number. That is hundreds of millions of birds, on certain peak nights billions of them, moving silently across the continent in waves so large that weather radar systems can actually see them. And as they fly, they call. These are called nocturnal flight calls, and they are one of the most fascinating areas of modern ornithology. According to research published in the journal Auk, these flight calls are short, sharp, often less than a tenth of a second long, and they serve as a kind of invisible network in the sky. Birds use them to maintain contact with their flock in total darkness, to coordinate direction, to warn each other about exhaustion, and most importantly, to signal when something is wrong. When you hear a series of sharp peeps or thin whistles above your house at 2 a.m. during spring or autumn, you are not imagining it. You are hearing a migration in progress. You're hearing thousands of birds passing over your roof, communicating with each other, navigating by stars and magnetic fields and the calls of their own kind. And here is where it becomes unsettling. Researchers have discovered that the intensity, the frequency, and the desperation of these flight calls changes dramatically when something disrupts the migration. When artificial light from cities draws migrating flocks off course, the calls become louder, more frantic, and more chaotic. When storms appear suddenly in their path, the calls increase. When a flock becomes disoriented and begins circling, lost in the glow of urban skies, the calls take on a quality that bioacoustic researchers describe as distress signaling. You may not realize it, but if you have ever heard a strange increase in nighttime bird sounds during a storm or on a particularly hazy night, you may have been listening to a flock in trouble, a flock calling for help that it cannot receive. But migration only explains part of what you hear at night. There is another reason birds call after dark, and this one is more direct, more local, and far more relevant to the birds sitting in the tree right outside your window. Alarm. According to research compiled by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and published in studies on heterospecific alarm signaling, birds maintain one of the most sophisticated predator detection networks in the natural world. During the day, you witness this network in action every time a hawk flies over, and the entire neighborhood erupts in scolding calls from jays, chickadees, titmice, and robins. What most people do not realize is that this same network operates at night. The birds may be roosting, the birds may be silent, but they are not unaware. When a great horned owl moves through the trees, When a raccoon climbs toward a nest, when a snake slides up a trunk, the first bird to detect the threat does not stay quiet. It calls. And once that call goes out, every nearby bird wakes up. This is what you are hearing, when a single sharp shriek breaks the silence at 2 in the morning and then echoes once, twice before fading. That is not a bird singing. That is a bird warning. A study published in the Royal Society journal Biology Letters showed that birds use specific acoustic properties in their alarm calls that are recognizable not only to their own species, but to dozens of other species sharing the same habitat. A robin's alarm at midnight can wake up a sparrow, a cardinal, and a wren simultaneously, even though none of them speak the same language. The acoustic shape of the call, sharp onset, high frequency, repeating pattern, carries a meaning that crosses species lines. It says danger, and every bird that hears it understands. Now, here is where things get strange. Because not every nighttime call is migration, not every call is alarm. Some calls are something else entirely, and these are the ones that have led to centuries of human superstition. Take the northern mockingbird. If you have ever lived in a region where mockingbirds are common, you know exactly what this sounds like. From late spring through midsummer, a single mockingbird will perch on a roof, a streetlight, a power line, and sing through the entire night. Sometimes for hours, sometimes until dawn. According to research from multiple ornithology institutions, these are almost always unmated males. They are calling because they have failed to find a partner during the day, and so they extend their search into the darkness, broadcasting their song to any female within range. This is desperate behavior. It is the behavior of a bird running out of time in the breeding season. And, in human folklore, this exact behavior, a lone bird calling endlessly through the dark, was almost universally interpreted as a sign of death or misfortune. The truth is more mundane, but in a way more haunting. You are not hearing an omen. You are hearing loneliness. You are hearing a bird that has been singing for 16, 18, 20 hours straight, and still has not been answered. And then, there is light pollution, the modern factor that almost no one understands. A study published in the journal Science in 2025 analyzed nearly 600 bird species across the globe and discovered something that genuinely shocked the researchers involved. Birds living in areas with significant artificial light at night are vocalizing for an average of 50 minutes longer each day than birds in dark, rural areas. 50 minutes. The presence of streetlights, security lights, and city glow is fundamentally altering bird behavior on a global scale, pushing daytime species into nighttime singing because their bodies can no longer accurately tell when the day has ended. So when you hear a cardinal calling at 1 in the morning, you may be hearing the consequences of the porch light 3 houses down. The bird is not confused in the way you might imagine. Its circadian rhythm, its internal clock, is being broken by something humans installed without ever thinking about what it would do. But all of this, the migration, the alarm, the loneliness, the light pollution, leads us to the part of this video that researchers are still struggling to fully explain. Because there is a category of nighttime bird vocalization that does not fit neatly into any of these explanations. And this is the part that overlaps in unsettling ways with the old superstitions. Birds, in many documented cases, appear to call at night in response to things that human observers cannot perceive. Researchers studying nighttime vocalizations and roosting flocks have noted moments when a single bird will erupt into alarm calls, triggering the entire flock, and no predator can be found. No owl, no snake, no raccoon, nothing. The birds calm down after several minutes, and the source of the disturbance remains a mystery. In some cases, follow-up investigation has revealed that the trigger was something so subtle that no human would have noticed it. A change in air pressure preceding a storm still hours away. The infrasound of distant thunder below the range of human hearing. The vibration of an earthquake that would not register on local seismographs for another 20 or 30 minutes. The faint chemical scent of smoke from a fire too far away for a human nose to detect. Birds, it turns out, possess sensory equipment that vastly exceeds our own in certain dimensions. Their hearing extends into frequencies we cannot hear. Their sense of barometric pressure is so refined that ornithologists have used flock behavior to predict storms before weather instruments could detect them. Their olfactory capabilities, long thought to be poor, are now understood in some species to rival those of dogs. So when a bird screams at night, if there is no visible reason, it does not mean there is no reason. It means the reason is beyond your senses. And this is, in a way that scientists are deeply reluctant to acknowledge but cannot fully dismiss, the kernel of truth inside the old superstition. The ancestors who said that a bird calling at night was a warning were not entirely wrong. They were simply observing, without the vocabulary of modern biology, an animal that perceives more than we do, reacting to things that we cannot. There is one more layer to this, and it is the layer that bird researchers find the most fascinating and the most difficult to study. Birds do not only call in response to immediate threats. They call in response to changes in their environment that suggest threats are coming. A roosting flock of starlings, for example, will sometimes begin a low murmuring chorus in the middle of the night that researchers have linked to seasonal shifts in temperature, to subtle changes in wind direction, and in at least one documented case, to the approach of a wildfire still more than 15 kilometers away. The flock did not see the fire. The flock did not smell smoke in any quantity a human could verify. But the flock began calling, and within hours the fire was visible on the horizon. This is not magic. This is biology working at a resolution we have not fully mapped yet. And it is happening every single night, in every single tree, in every single neighborhood where birds roost. The next time you hear a bird scream in the darkness, do not assume it is meaningless. Do not assume it is random. Do not assume it is just a creature confused by your porch light. It might be that. It might also be a migrating warbler calling out from 300 meters above your house, lost and tired and searching for its flock. It might be a robin that detected an owl moving through the branches above the nest where its chicks are sleeping. It might be a mockingbird that has been singing alone for 19 hours and refuses to give up. It might be a flock reacting to a storm that the weather forecast has not yet caught up to. Or it might be something else, something the bird perceives and you do not. Something the bird is warning everyone within earshot about, including you, even though you cannot understand the language and may never know what the warning was for. This is the hidden truth that centuries of superstition were dancing around without ever quite naming. Birds are not random creatures making random sounds. They are precision instruments tuned to a world that runs underneath our own. They hear deeper, they sense further, and they react faster than any technology we have built. When they break the silence of the night, they are not breaking it for nothing. They are telling each other, and incidentally telling us, that something in the world has changed. The warning is real. The warning has always been real. We just stopped listening, and then we forgot how to hear it in the first place. So tonight, if you wake up at 3 in the morning and hear that sharp, strange cry outside your window, do not roll over and ignore it. Step outside. Listen for a moment. Pay attention to what time of year it is, what direction the call came from, whether it repeats, whether other birds answer. You will not always know what the warning means, but you will know that it is a warning. And that simple act of acknowledgement, of treating the bird as a communicator rather than a nuisance, will connect you to something older than language, older than civilization, older than any superstition humans have ever built around it. The birds were here long before we were. They have been screaming their warnings into the night for tens of millions of years. And the only thing that has changed is whether we are paying attention. Tell me in the comments, have you ever heard a bird scream at night? What did it sound like? What time was it? What was happening around you when it happened? I want to read every single story. I read every one. I will see you in the next one.